Hello Flosstube, welcome to Snickerdoodle Stitch. My name is Kathleen and this is a channel about cross stitch. At least this week it's solely cross stitch because that's what's consumed my last 2 weeks. I was at Needlework Galleria in St. Louis weekend before last, and then last weekend I was at Stitching in the Wild in Montgomery, Alabama. So I have a ton of stitching items to show you, as well as way too much haul, which I kind of expected and hadn't been shopping too much leading up to this. But before we start, I had offered this pattern up to anyone. I did a drawing from comments that had the word mouse in it, and the winner is Luciana Funtowitz. I'll reply on your comment as well, just to confirm for you. If you just email me at snickerdoodlestitch@gmail.com, I'll get this in the mail to you. So that was the Satsuma Street winter break pattern. Well, it was a kit, but I did the mouse. I haven't FFO'd it yet. Hopefully this week I'll get that done, but giving that pattern away. So diving right in, I'm gonna go a little bit out of order. I think I would normally start with Galleria, since that was what I did first, and then I generally go through things sequentially, but I want to recognize a couple people here at the outset. So at Stitching in the Wild for the Smalls Exchange, I got from Sue this beautiful little pillow with the mushroom. I do not know who the pattern was. I meant to ask, and there was a lot going on when we were up there meeting the folks that had stitched our piece, but it's this beautiful little pillow. It's gonna look fabulous in my living room, which has greens in it, and just really sweet and very nicely done. Love the lace around the edge. So that was from Sue. For my Smalls Exchange, I gave a blackbird design. It's an owl with the moon behind it and a tree. I had stitched it late last year and FFO'd it, and it was on a wooden piece that had a crow on the top, and I was glad it was not a horribly feminine looking piece, because Mike picked my small. Mike and his mother have a Flosstube, the Stitching Duo. So if you haven't ever watched them, check them out. They're fun. They don't have a lot, and I think it's been a while since they posted a video. I had to ask Gary and Ronnie to remind me what their channel name was, because I knew I had watched them, but I kept thinking it's been a while. But it's been a while since I've watched Flosstube as well. So, but I think Gary or Ronnie said they hadn't posted in a while. But Mike got my small, and then my friend Celia gave me this little. Isn't that the sweetest little mouse? And it's in this tin. It opens up so you could keep orts or something in there, and she has put a magnet underneath the fabric so it would hold needles. So great little stitchy spot thing. She said these little tins are in the kitchen section at Walmart, but I've never seen them. Not that I'm in the kitchen section that often. I'm at the point in life where I've got everything in the kitchen that I need. It's rare that I'm in the kitchen section anymore. But she said it was in the kitchen section. But I can't figure out what it's intended for. So I'm curious to look at Walmart and find it, just so I can figure out what the kitchen intent was, because it's a little tiny. I mean, I would think maybe salt cellar. It's kind of big. I don't know. But she knows I like mice, and she stitched up this really sweet little mouse. And funny story, I have mentioned on here before that I don't particularly like mice that have pink tails, because I think it makes them look like rats instead of mice. And as I was saying that, Celia already had this stitched. And so she unstitched the pink tail and put a gray tail on him. So it started to have a pink tail, but mine has a gray tail, so it looks like a mouse for sure and not a rat. but very sweet of Celia. It was fun to get to catch up with her, and her husband Mark is now stitching as well. So she's got some company there and bad influence in the shops. I'll just say that. All right, one more thing from Stitching in the Wild, then I'm going to backtrack to my Galleria stuff. Stitching in the Wild did 2 raffles. One, there were many prizes, and that was on Friday. I bought many tickets. I didn't win anything. Everybody at my table won stuff though, which was a lot of fun. I mean, everything from really fancy project carriers, like a carrier that you actually could, it had multiple kind of zipper pouches inside. So I said it would be enough if you took like 3 projects to a retreat, your whole retreat could pack in this one carrier. It was really nice. We had some folks won fabric. Deb won customer appreciation package that had a whole bundle of patterns and fabric in it. I didn't win anything from those drawings, but on Saturday they did a special drawing. The tickets did cost more. They were $5 a piece. I only bought 2. It wasn't something that I thought I really wanted, and so I bought a couple tickets. The money from that drawing was gone to Wounded Warriors, so I was more than happy to donate, and I just looked at it that way. And we figured there were about 200 tickets sold, and I won the drawing. And I won Lady of the Flag. So the coveted Mirabilia, and now I'm gonna have to stitch it. So someone who sat near me was sharing that there's a Mirabilia, there's actually a Lady of the Flag Mirabilia Facebook group. And in that group, someone has posted, it's like 10 different color conversions for the dress. And it's all different color conversions that different people have done, and they've identified who the person was with each of them. And there's a silver one, and there's, they call it teal. I would say more like patina, like Statue of Liberty looking conversion. And I'm leaning toward doing one of those if I can find a fabric that they would work on, as well as the blue from the flag. Like my first thought was, ooh, silver on a dark blue, which, you know, I like that combo anyway. But then the blue part of the flag isn't going to really show up. So I've pulled some floss, and I'm hoping this weekend to identify which color way I want to do. I also have the gold pulled, and I'm going to dig through my fabric and decide how I want to do that. The count on this is 340 by 170, so not terribly wide, but very tall. Yeah, here on 32 count, it's 21 inches by 10 inches and change, but 21 by 10, so it is very tall. But that was quite exciting. All right, let me now jump sequentially back to talking about Needlework Galleria. And then I've got more talk about the retreat, Stitching in the Wild, that I'll do when I get up to the retreat in my stuff here. So on my way out, I stitched on, I flew there this time, so I stitched on Primrose Cottage's Summer Quaker, which is this pattern. These have been some of my go-to for travel. I like them because it's compact, it's one color, so I'm not dealing on the plane with a whole bunch of different floss. They're very easy, great travel projects. So I'm doing this 1/1 on 20, I think it's 28 count Lugana. And I didn't get terribly far. I worked on this here. I fell asleep on the plane, so that cut into my stitching time there. And then I thought I would stitch on this on the flight back as well, but Sunday, my flight was supposed to leave at like 4:25, get into Philly at 8:30 kind of schedule. My flight left at like 20 after 11 p.m. So I landed in Philly, I don't know, it was 4:30 by the time I landed in Philly, got my car from the long-term parking and got home. I literally parked in the garage, walked in the house, fell into bed, and it was 4:37 when I looked at the clock. And I had to work Monday. That was Sunday. I had to work Monday. So on my flight back, I didn't get any stitching done. I did sleep again on the flight because at that point, by the time we were on the flight, it was getting close to midnight, which is close to 1 this time zone. And I knew that I was only going to have a few hours of sleep when I got home before I had to get up and get logged on for work. So I did sleep on the plane. I didn't stitch, so I didn't get a whole lot done on this. This may go with me again. I just found out I have to fly to California for work the first week in November. So I'm trying to decide if I want to take that or another piece that I'll show later. Okay. I stitched on, this was Serenity, which I thought was our exclusive at Stitch North earlier this spring, but I think it was just an early release. Like, we got it before it was available. And it's charted to do with Roxy Flossco threads, but they do also give the DMC conversions. And I will say the conversions are pretty close. I got a lot done on this one. Sorry, I've got things flying around here. I don't even know what that is. So this is the called for Roxy Flossco floss and fabric. This is 28 count Specula, I think is the name of the fabric. Speculous. And I did everything from these bobbins. I had the bobbins in, so everything below that, including some of this border here, done. I really like, okay, there the colors are showing up better. I like the color of this speculous fabric. I think it actually makes the colors on here pop a little more. And the Roxy Flossco floss has been wonderful to work with. It's very smooth. It gives good coverage. I love how saturated the colors are. Just enjoying stitching on this piece. And it was fun getting started on the lady. So I'm going to have a lot of this floss left when I'm done. And I bought this somewhere. It's another piece from Pansy Patch Quilts. Sorry, Serenity is from the one I'm stitching here. Serenity is from Pansy Patch Quilts. And this other one is called Stitch. I don't know how well it's going to show up. And it's kind of hard to tell on the photo, but the colors are similar to these. The fabric that the model stitched on is much darker. My plan is to use the floss that's left from this to do Stitch. They both will be Stitchy themed pieces. And I think, let's see, 36 count. That's 7 1/4 by a little less than 5. This one, 7.8 by 6.5. All right, they're close to the same size. They're not terribly big. I don't have enough of this fabric left to do another piece on it. This is going to come over pretty, it's going to come over far enough that another piece won't, big piece like this, well, not that this is big, but it's not like a little ornament either. I can't fit another one of these on here, but I'm going to look in my stash to see what I have that's closest to this and use the leftover floss from this to do the Stitch. Stitch is charted with, well, General Arts, Classic Color Works, and Weeks Dye Works. And they are colors that I mostly have, but I want to do it in these same Roxy Flosco colors. So that's my plan for this one. So when I'm done with this, I'll do this one and do it in those colors. Although what I had planned when I was done with that was working on the Primrose Cottage stitching rules. It's been in the same bag, same project bag as that one, but I think I'll probably do the other Pansy Patch quilts first. When I was in St. Louis, I did make it to Color and Cotton. Amazing little shop, absolutely gorgeous, and very well organized, super friendly staff. I probably did more damage to my pocketbook at Color and Cotton than I did at all of Galleria. But since I have this pattern, that's why I brought it up. I was digging through, they had not a lot, but they had some of their flosses packaged up as conversions for different charts. And I wasn't finding anything that I had, and then lo and behold, it was the color conversion to their flosses for this pattern. So I did pick that up. Oh, actually, you know what? That's not even, the pattern calls for Color and Cotton. Duh, I never noticed that. I didn't have the pattern with me. I knew I had the pattern and I saw the flosses. So sorry, it is the called for. So I won't have to do any sort of conversion. My original plan was to use the DMC, but then when I was at Color and Cotton, I wanted to indulge in some of their goodies. So I did pick this up. So now I'll be torn on which of those I want from that project bag I want to do first. Do I want to do the Stitch from Pansy Patch Quilts using the Roxy Flosco, or do I want to break into the Color and Cotton and do the Primrose? I'll see what whim strikes me when I get to that. It's probably not going to be until early next year, because now we're up to holiday stitching. So at Color and Cotton and at Galleria, a lot of the samples and things that they have out are Halloween. That's a lot of what just came out in August, and it's just what the shops are all gearing up for. So you're gonna see a lot of Halloween coming here right now. Between that and Stitching in the Wild, Gary's favorite stitching is Halloween, so huge Halloween leaning there as well. So when I got to St. Louis, my flight out was delayed. It was only delayed a couple hours, but that was enough that I couldn't make it that day to Color and Cotton. So I didn't go to Color and Cotton until, well, I went first thing the next morning is what I did. So I got there Thursday. They have the preview from like 6 to 9, 6:30 to 9, something like that, the first night. And then they're open Friday and Saturday from 9 to 5, I think. Might have been 10 to 5. Kind of daytime hours. So I went over to Color and Cotton first thing Friday because I made it to the places that were my must-sees. Got to get to them at the preview night in case they sell out of anything. And I decided, you know what, Color and Cotton is going to be more crowded later in the day or later on Saturday when everybody's done at Galleria, and then they make their way over there. And actually, even as I was at Color and Cotton, because I got there when they first opened and was there a few hours, and toward the end it was getting crowded in the shop, and it was a lot of people coming in saying that they were in town for Galleria. So a lot of us had the same thought. This pattern, this next piece, I bought and I stitched while I was there. This is from a designer that I'm not familiar with. I'm taking it out of the package so you can see it a little better. These packages create really bad glare. It's from Blue Moon Designs, who I don't know anything about. And I need to Google and see if they are local or affiliated with Color and Cotton. It's charted to use all Color and Cotton, and the pattern is called Salem Knoll. And it's this little witch taking a nap under the tree. And they had this stitched up. It was a sample in the shop, and every time I walked past this one area, it caught my eye. It was the fabric. I know what catches my eye usually, and it was the fabric on this one. But since it was Color and Cotton, and it was before I saw the floss for the Primrose, that package, I wanted something from Color and Cotton that I would stitch while I was there. And so I did go ahead and get this pattern, and I got some fabric. If I can get it out here. Sorry, I've got things sticking together here. Now I'm dropping things. All right, I'll pick that up in a moment. That's the back of my fabric. Isn't it lovely? This is actually the bottom. So this is how wide that will be. And this is 32 count dark capri. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit when I get to my shopping from Color and Cotton, but this is the dark capri. So this is how wide it is, and it's pretty square. So that's about how tall it will be as well. And that was what I did in the hotel that weekend. When I wasn't working on Serenity, I was trucking along on this border to get it started. The tree would actually make some good kind of mindless retreat type stitching. Not that I get a lot of stitching done when I'm at retreats, but I can always plan for it and hope, right? All right, now I've dropped the needle. Good grief, I'm having a time here. Okay, this next thing I bought when I was at Galleria. Oh, you know what? I stitched this in the airport waiting for my delay that was delayed like 7 hours to come home. It's one of the Mill Hill Autumn series, and it's called Moonstruck. And I actually bought a second kit, and I think it may still be in my suitcase. I haven't even had a chance to finish unpacking. And you see these white spots here? Well, that's what I want to talk about for a minute here. If I'd stop dropping things. I just dropped something else. It's on black. Yes, this was black, and yes, I did start stitching it. This is the upper right corner. I didn't get a lot done, but all this white that you're seeing, this is black perforated paper, and it is sticking to everything. So I had trouble even getting it out of the package before I started stitching it, and then when I was pulling it out to have it out of the package for this, I noticed that it had stuck to the photo. I had this stuck in there this way, and it stuck to the photo. And even though this looks white, it's pulled the ink off of here. Yeah. So I do paper crafts too, so I have a ton of archival black ink pads, and that's my plan, is just to swipe this with a black ink pad. It's gonna all get stitched over anyway. This thing is full coverage. There isn't anything that doesn't get stitched. But just in case, I mean, if none of it were ever gonna show, you wouldn't even bother using colored perforated paper. So there's little bits of it that can still show. So I'm gonna color this with a black archival permanent ink pad to deal with the mess that the thing made there. But a word of warning, if you're doing any of these, this could stick really badly to probably anything in there. It was not in a hot car. I didn't even check my suitcase. This was all in carry-on. So it's not a temperature thing that caused it. I don't know what caused it, but it's stuck. So that's my word of warning. All right. I'll wait and show Galleria haul after I show my stitching from Stitching in the Wild. I've got all the haul at the end. Oh, I lied. I said I didn't win anything other than the Lady of the Flag was plenty to win, but I did in the customer appreciation drawing won these really pretty scissors with the little leathery sheath and everything. They're little butterflies. They're really pretty. Well, maybe if I don't put them in front of my glasses. Like this is 2 butterfly wings there. So I won those at Stitching in the Wild. My table gifts I gave out were I had different holidays, themes of floss straps. I bought these from the Cottage Cat Designs at Galleria. This was just one. There's no 2 cards are the same in here, but this is sort of the style of the ones in this pack. I had some Christmas ones. I had some Halloween ones. Cottage Cat Designs does have an Etsy website, and the funny thing was one of my table mates, that's what she gave. It was a little pair of scissors and some of the floss drops from Cottage Cat Designs attached. So she knew Cottage Cat Designs, but I definitely recommend you checking out their Etsy shop. They were really cute. And then I had a package of mixed pony needles in the little gift bag for my table mates. So that was what I gave out. And then I have so much stuff that people gifted that I've got a lot of floss. How did I get started on this stuff? Okay, I thought this was really clever. It's a little 6-inch ruler, and she's got pom-poms glued to it. This was by Sherry from Texas. And it's so if you have to preload several needles with floss, similar to what I do for some of my bigger pieces that have a lot of color changes constantly happening, where I've got needles preloaded with multiple colors. You just poke them into the little pom-poms. So I thought these were clever. She had all different colors. I just grabbed the Christmas colored ones, but they're probably 1-inch pom-poms. They're not really an inch, but I seem to remember from working in my craft store days that the size they say they are is actually bigger than what they actually are. But I thought that was cute and very clever. And then I've got bags, thread organizer. This would be nice for a mill hill, because the mill hills have so many colors in them that you've got to pre-sort. Someone made a paint poured coaster. So I get that. Someone on my table had this little tub full of some things. I've got all kinds of things stuffed in here. I had to do some breakdown and condensing for everything to fit in my carry-on suitcase to come back home. And I was a little worried because the flight from Montgomery to Atlanta is a little tiny plane, so you don't want to just run the risk that they're going to say your suitcase, which mine was tiny, but even those sometimes won't fit in the overhead. So I was really worried about that and trying to fit as much as I could into just my quilted tote bag that I took as my personal item just in case they took my suitcase. I wasn't putting anything like my new haul or my Lady of the Flag in a checked suitcase that could get lost in Atlanta of all places. So my stitching is Stitching in the Wild. I worked on Primrose Cottage, my magic wand, and I did this on some fabric that I bought at Galleria. So it's Atomic Ranch 32 count pistachio. It is not the called for colors. It is a couple flosses that I grabbed at Color and Cotton, which is where I bought the pattern. And then I stitched the gold on the bottom of the candy corn when I got back home. And the rest of it was stuff I had in other things kitted that was with me, like some white and so that's cute. And it's finished. I just need to FFO it now. What is that called? Oh, my magic wand. I guess that makes sense since that's what the stitching says. Oh, it's been a week. All right. This next one I bought at Stitching in the Wild. And through peer pressure. And then started it through peer pressure. There were, I think, 4 of us at my table. I had fantastic table mates. So I sat with Deb and Holly, who I sat with last year. And then we had Catherine, Robin, and Holly also at the table. And Holly, it turns out, lives like an hour from me. She's up in the area that I go to in central PA, where it's Amish country, where all of the quilt shops and 2 of the needlework stores nearby are up there. But they were starting this, and Gary's really smart. He has fabric pre-cut and packaged in all different counts, the size that you would need to do the exclusives, and then he's got thread packs there. So if you see an exclusive, you know you can get all the things and start it right there. And that's what a lot of us did with this. I am not using the called for fabric. But this is an exclusive, but you can get it. It's not a retreat exclusive. It's exclusive for Gary for now. And it's by Lila's Studio, and it is 'Tis Near Halloween. So the only place you can get this is from Garon Stitchery. At least for this Halloween. And I've got all I got the floss pack. And I didn't get a whole lot done. This is on Fabrics by Stephanie, 32 count chocolate milk. Stephanie was at Stitching in the Wild. And the called for fabric, to me, is a really ugly kind of greenish gold. It was not doing it for me. The funny thing was I liked it in the sample, but the sample was 40 count linen. And then when I looked at the fabric in any count that I would do, just the fabric looked hideous to me. So no one at my table was doing it in the called for. Everybody bought the pattern there and bought fabric there, but everybody bought different fabric. Holly was doing a gray. That was actually really cool looking. And I forget what Catherine was using. I think that might have been the thing she was doing on a piece of fabric she picked up off the freebie table. But mine's chocolate milk. And what I got done was not a lot. This is actually a lot of stitching on this piece, but I got the Halloween, and then I've started on this boot over here, so I'm down to here on the dark gray outline, working on that. So I'm not sure when you're going to see this one again, but it got started anyway. It didn't help that I started it that morning. I don't remember if it was Friday or Saturday. And at 3 o'clock, I had stitched the H and the blue outline. I was so distracted at stitching in the wild. There's just too many people to talk to, too many things to look at. It's probably the retreat that I get most distracted at and get the least stitching done. But it was all good, right? If all I wanted to do was get the most stitching done that I could in a weekend, I would have just sat here on my sofa and turned the phone off or something. So it was good. All right. The next thing I worked on was La-Di-Da, Toil and Trouble. And last year I did the La-Di-Da Something Wicked. So I want to do these two to keep them together. Here's my Something Wicked that I did last year. This is on fabric that I dyed myself. It is 18 count Ada, which in my fabric dyeing experimenting, this was just one of the pieces that I had done playing around, and I decided I wanted it for this. I am using 2 strands, so that gives the nice solid look, even though 2 strands on the Ada is a bit of a beast. So I started the Toil and Trouble, and I didn't, it looks like I didn't get very far. It's actually like 500 stitches. So I've started on, this is the bottom corner, and I've started on the nose, and this is how far across the nose is gonna go. But you know, this is 150 stitches plus just getting across the nose. So it doesn't look like a lot. When I mentioned earlier that I have to go to California in November, it'll be that first week in November. And I may actually take this. I had originally wanted to get this piece finished this year, since I had this one done last year. But I don't know. That's not going to happen unless I take it on a trip. I'll be too bored stitching on that at home. I'll do that thing where, actually I've done it a couple times over the last 2 weeks. I've just been so tired from this traveling. I mean, I was gone Labor Day weekend. I got home Monday. I left Thursday morning for St. Louis. I got back at 4 a.m.-ish, 4:30 Monday morning. And then Wednesday afternoon, I flew out for Montgomery, and I got back like 2 a.m. Sunday night. So I've only had a couple weekdays home each of those weeks, and it's been this frenzy of unpack, repack. My house is now a shambles from all this nonsense. So this weekend I've got to clean and get some stuff back in order. Yeah, it's been busy. Oh, so I lost my train of thought. So a couple nights I had my stitching out ready to stitch, just vegging, watching some TV, and I ended up just vegging, watching some TV. I didn't even stitch, which is really not like me. I have trouble staying awake if I'm not doing something with my hands. And I usually get bored with what I'm watching, but I was just exhausted. So the last piece that I took with me, I think, that I stitched at Stitching in the Wild was my From Toledo to Toledo. And my friend Diane, who was at Stitching in the Wild, had this as well. She hadn't started it yet, but I was able to share with her that there are some chart issues down here in the bottom. It's the wrong symbols if you want it to look like the picture. And I did find a similar problem in this band. So it's these inner bands that are having this problem. I went ahead and did a glance at this L-shaped one, and that seems to be okay. But it's some blues that are wrong in here and here. And then this one I think actually has more problems than the blue symbols. But either follow the chart or follow the picture when you get to those 3 bands. Don't follow the chart and then wonder why it doesn't look like the picture because the chart's not right. There's not any corrections on the website. I am going to shoot her an email just so the designer knows, but it's easy enough to tell from the picture. So guys, I am so close to having this done. My goal was to finish it by this year, but I said if it didn't get finished in September, it wasn't going to get finished until early next year because I would be into Halloween, fall, and Christmas stitching for the next October, November, December. I don't know if I'm going to get this done this month, but I am so close. So I got done this part of the band and then the outlining here. So the only thing I will have left to do is the L shape that goes in here, and it is more open like this band. It's not one of the bands like this, which is really heavy stitching and took a while. Or even this band up here was a bit of a beast and took a while. So I would like this week to finish this band and possibly even start on this L-shaped piece that goes in there. Because all that's really left is the L shape, the monogram, and then there's a small motif up here in this corner. It's nothing. In fact, I could probably do this band and that motif, and then all that would be left is the L and the monogram. But how many weeks do we have left? Yeah, no, my next Flosstube will be October 3rd, so I'll definitely be into Halloween or continuing Halloween stitching. I've already started just by nature from where I've been for the last 2 weeks. But this is on 28 count fiber on a whim, cream and sugar. It's a big one. It's going to take a 16 by 20 frame. And that was what drove my decision to use the 28 count was I want to hang this over my piano, and so I need it to be bigger. But I am loving this one. It doesn't even do it justice on screen. It's a fun stitch. It's a lot of stitching, but it's a fun stitch. And her color choices, I just absolutely love. So hopefully I finish that this weekend and do something else in the middle there. We'll see. All right, now I have way too much haul to show. My haul. Some of it's from the freebie table. All right, let me start plowing through this. I will probably not show the stuff that I got from the freebie table just because I think we're gonna be a long time. I don't want to be here all night. You don't want to listen to me yak all night either. So when I was at Color and Cotton, they also had floss hanks labeled a happy little accident. So they're just things that the color didn't come out right in. And I don't want to unpackage this, but I don't know if you can. Oh, it's the color on my sweatshirt. My favorite color. Yeah, it is a variegated green. It's the color of my sweatshirt. It really is. And the sweatshirt color is coming out green instead of blue for once. I don't know how that's happened, but it's the color of the floss. So they were very reasonably priced for a whole hank of floss. And I will do some sort of ink circles, long dog, modern folk embroidery. Something will be done with that for sure. I showed the cat mill hill that I was working on. I also bought this little haunted house. It's called Haunted Cottage, and it's also from the Autumn series. There was a new, I feel like I'm all over the place tonight. So Galleria is set up like Market. It's at an Embassy Suites. The entire 4th floor, they take all of the rooms, and the vendors basically set up shop in their living room of the rooms. Some vendors actually had multiple rooms with connecting doors. One vendor was even set up in the bathroom. She was really clever how she had covered things in there and you had no idea you were in the bathroom. There were as many vendors there as there were when I was there 3 years ago. So I went 3 years ago. There were not nearly as many shoppers there, and that worries me. I saw this happening with stamp conventions over the years, and they can end up in this death spiral where there aren't enough people attending, so the vendors won't stop being as interested in coming, and then you have fewer vendors, and now there's fewer people interested in coming. So I hope that's not what's happening with them. They were a couple weeks earlier this year. They were earlier in September than they have typically been, and some people were speculating that that may have been part of the lower attendance. Now, I heard vendors saying they had good shows, but then like Rami was there. You may know Rami's designs. I had some floss I bought from her. I bought some designs from her at Galleria, Rami's Creations. I bought Stitching Snowmen. And I bought Halloween Pink Moon. And I don't know if you can tell, but the little person is in like a, I don't know if it's a cat or a mouse costume. And then it has the little like ghost balloon. It's just really cute. She had these stitched up in there. But I felt bad because at Galleria, every time I walked by her room, there was nobody in there. And she came here from Italy. Now, she was also at Stitching in the Wild, vending. So Gary had 2 people there selling things. He had Stephanie from Fabrics by Stephanie, and Rami was there. And I think she did okay at Galleria, or at Stitching in the Wild. But that was my take on Galleria, was a lot fewer people than 3 years ago. I don't know how many were there last year or the year before, and I'm not going off any numbers of people that I heard. I'm just going off of when I was there 3 years ago, preview night, the line went halfway down the floor to get into Fabrics by Stephanie was there that time. She was the fabric dyer that was there. And they were lined up down the hall to get into her room. Atomic Ranch was the fabric dyer who was there this time, and Millennial Fabrics. And there were like maybe 3 or 4 people lined up outside their place. Rosewood Manor was there 3 years ago and was there this time. 3 years ago, it was hard to get in her room at any time on the weekend, other than like the very end of the show. It just was packed with people the entire time. This time, maybe maybe 4 people in there at a time. And it wasn't because tastes have changed. It was just, there were just not as many people there this time. So I'm really glad I went. I'll just say that. They gave us, when we checked in there, a little packet, and there's stickers in here to go on the back, but it's like a thread organizer, and then you've got the little thread bed and the needle minder there. So That was really cute. We got that when we checked in at Galleria. Oops, I'm getting mixed up. So at Galleria, I did buy more patterns than I should have. Actually, this one was at Color and Cotton. It was the Crocetta Go-Go, the Little Witch. It's a new pattern that's out. And I just liked her little face. And I forgot I bought this. You're going to see I bought a different Little Witch at Stitching in the Wild. And I've really got to stop buying Halloween patterns. I also bought the Twin Peaks Primitives Fang and Big Eye Gang. And these backgrounds are actually all stitched. The red, the yellow, that sagey green. I have no intentions of stitching all that background. Those are going to go on some colored fabrics. But they had these finished like this with the spools and the bows. The finishing on them is really cute. I may copy that finishing. I don't usually, but that one is really cute for those pieces. This was a market release, an August market release that was on my wish list. And it's Jan Hicks Creates Blue Velvet. And it would look good with my Blue Rhapsody and my Modern Folk Embroidery that I'm working on. So I haven't, this calls for Classic Colorworks and General Arts. Actually, a couple of the colors are the same as what's called for in Blue Rhapsody from Rosewood Manor, but I am not using the called for. I'm using some silks. I may use slightly different flosses for these, for this one. But when I saw this and when I was scrolling through the stuff coming out in August, I was like, oh, I think I need that one. So that was one that was on my list. There was something else on my list. Oh, these little guys were on my list too. I thought they were just really different. And then I picked up Lila's Studio Peace on Earth. I have the spring one. I haven't started it, but I do have the spring pattern like this. I love all of these when they're stitched up. They are bigger stitches, so although they're Quakers, Quakers go pretty fast for me. Well, that little seam in the middle is not necessarily a fast stitch. That's a lot of stitches and it's a lot of color changes both. But I love, look at the little girls or little kids skating there. There's a little fox. I didn't notice all the little critters on it. All right, then I was in the Rosewood Manor booth or room. Her samples are amazing. I don't know how she gets all this stitched. Although I do know she uses other people to stitch some of them. She was sharing the Celebration. That's the big Mount Vernon with the fireworks that people are stitching now. It didn't originally have fireworks, and she sent it to her sample stitcher, and they were like, get rid of these birds, maybe fireworks. And that's how the fireworks ended up in there. She's always got a story, but she gave out a freebie pattern, but I bought some patterns. So one that I bought is Nature, and it looks very much like Barnwood Buttons, which I just worked on a couple weeks ago. It was one of my ones that I hadn't touched for this year. And I have a ton more of that fabric that Barnwood Buttons is on, and I think I may do this on that same fabric, although I do like this ombre look. So I have to think about that. It's already a dark fabric. I could over dye it and make it even darker on the bottom, but these little flowers, you're not going to be able to see it on the picture. These little flowers on the bottom are so sweet. They're just X's. I'm trying to get to them. Yeah, they're just X's with back stitching in there, but in person they just are so sweet. So anyway, this looks very much like barnwood buttons, although that's just a single row, and instead of the flower tops, it's white buttons. So that's one thing I picked up. It's called Nature. I picked up Peace Tree and Believe. So this pattern book actually has this tree. But it's also got this Believe that's on the back. She had them both there, and I've actually seen the Believe stitched up before. This does have beads. So if you don't like beads, it does have beads on it. And then, oh my, yeah, I went a little crazy in her booth. I bought Merry Merry Christmas, which is a new release. And they use these, I think they're new threads from Rainbow Gallery called Entice. And they are sort of like, oh yeah, look, you can even see the sparkle. They're sort of like a strand of floss with a blending filament spun around it. So instead of using a blending filament and a piece of floss, it's already wound with the color of the floss to match the blending filament. But this is what these trees are stitched with. So I'm not sure how this is to stitch with. And she had it on a beautiful opalescent fabric. I didn't buy any because it was Picture This Plus, Crystal Alchemy, and I'm not crazy about working on Picture This Plus fabric. But then I thought, oh, I'll find something at either Stitching in the Wild or after Stitching in the Wild. I went down to Gary and Ronnie's shop, their brick and mortar. Somewhere I will find opalescent fabric, and I didn't. Stephanie had some pretty opalescent, like 18 count Ada, maybe 16 count, but they were cut into fat eighths, and this does require a quarter. For the width. It's pretty big. It is 315 by 135. So it's about the size of Lady of the Flag, except she's this way. This is a pretty big piece, but beautiful stitched. I bought Lime Walk. That one has a different look for me, but it was pretty. It is not terribly big. 149 by 173. So not nearly as big. And it is stitched, it's all DMC. So this variegation in this green in here, that's just changes in floss colors. That's not an overdyed. You could use an overdyed, but you're not going to get like the dark in the middle and then the lighter colors at the outer edge like that and stuff. But overdyed might be a way to cheat with alphabet. And then the last pattern that I bought from her, I'm telling you, she has like, I don't know, 100 samples all stitched up in her room. And then she's so nice and friendly that I get sucked in there, and before I know it, I'm leaving with a whole bunch of patterns. The last one that I bought was Serenity, and it's another one in those blue ranges that I seem to be drawn to right now. Like Blue Rhapsody, the Jan Hicks that I showed. In fact, let me see what fabric, what this is calling for. Oh no, this is calling for Weeks Dye Works. I just remembered something I forgot to ask about. All right, the last thing I bought. Oh, and they gave, oh, you can't see it. All right, I won't waste your time with that. From Cherry Blossoms. Cherry Blossoms was at Galleria. There were a couple designers there that I had not seen trunk shows or in person before. Cherry Blossoms was one. Annie B's was at Galleria. Carriage House Samplings was at Galleria. I'm frowning because I bought a pattern at Annie B's, but I don't remember now what it was or where it is. Well, I don't know. Carriage House was there, and Cherry Blossoms was there. And what I bought is this wooden stand. So this makes a stand that this piece then slides into so that it will stay standing up. And it is to finish these snow globe patterns. And I don't know if I can hold them up close enough for you to see, but there's the snow globe patterns at the bottom there. And I have the one that's farthest, this greenish one. I think that may have been the first one that was out, and I have that pattern. So I really liked a couple of the others too, but I decided one snow globe snowman's enough. And I don't even have it stitched yet. So I didn't buy any more patterns, but I did buy the snowman, the wooden stand to put them on. I'm running out of room. All right. Then I went to Stitching in the Wild. And I mentioned already how Gary sets up any of his exclusives, and the exclusives you can buy through his online shop. I will tell you, there is one of the animal crackers. He has an exclusive animal cracker that you can only get from him. And it's really cute. I did not buy it. And I can't remember now what kind of critter it is. Squirrel, maybe? It has like a little Frankenstein mask that goes with it. He had several exclusives there. The Lila Studio is the only exclusive that I bought. But then he also had several trunk shows there. Rami was there. And, I lied. There were 3 people. There was Rami, there was Stephanie, and then Thread Milk Designs was there. She wasn't selling herself in the room, but she was there stitching, and he had a full trunk show of her stuff. She has the little patterns that are the little tiny pillows, one for each state, and they had all 50 states in like a display rack. And then she does the bottle, the milk cap floss drops and different things like that. So she was very nice. And after that, I feel like I'm missing another, I'm working my way around the room that was his shop, and I feel like I'm missing another trunk show from that back corner, but I can't think who it was. So then it was Thread Milk Designs. Then there was Quaint Rose Needle Arts. And then there was some hands-on design. Then it was a lot of Garon tote bags, and then Stephanie was there, and then the cash register. So that's the lap around the room. And then in the middle, the two tables in the middle were all of the exclusives, and they gave us a ton of freebie patterns. I don't know that I've ever had a check-in bag with so many freebie patterns in there. And so they had a table set up where Gary had stitched all of the freebie patterns, so there were samples, and they had the fabric and floss if you wanted to do any of the freebie patterns. But I love the Quaint Rose designs, and I know I've seen them before, and I think something online, I hadn't seen any of them stitched before, and I think it's one of those designers that once people start to see these stitched somewhere, they're gonna just explode, because her pieces are really sweet stitched. So I fell in love with Percy Penguin and Roxy Rabbit. These are kind of big. So they say they stitched them on 40 counts. That's 20. And that means they're only 9 inches tall. That's not that big. I don't think the ones I saw were that small. My plan is, I think I'm going to just stitch just the rabbit and just the penguin and do them as stand-ups. Although the full piece is stitched, were very sweet, but what I fell in love with was the whimsical penguin and rabbit with the patterns on them. So those two were from Quaint Rose Needle Arts, and then I got Comfort and Joy, and this was a pretty sweet little piece. This one probably was like 5 by 7, so it's not very big, but there was a raven that people were falling in love with. That one sold out very quickly in the weekend. Yeah, if you haven't looked at Quaint Rose Needle Arts before, I recommend checking them out. Beautiful patterns. I don't think there was anything that I didn't like from Quaint Rose Needle Arts. All right, this is my Lila Studio. This is the other little witch that I said if I had remembered that I had bought the Crocetta Go-Go little witch, I probably shouldn't have bought a second little witch, but I like that one from Lila's Studio, and I know I've already got some little witches in stash. At some point I need to get stitching these little witches. All right, then I told you I bought too much. I did warn you. There'll be no more shopping in my immediate future. Probably not until I do my end of year trip down to Baltimore and DC. So Hands-On Design Season 2, and it's just a little piece for each month. And the pattern just doesn't do it justice. They had the snowmen, these 3 little houses. They had like 3 of them there stitched up, and they're just really sweet, fast little stitches. So I don't know why I'm even making plans. You all know I'm terrible about being like, oh, squirrel. I was getting ready to say I should stitch one of these each month as the months happen, and then I would have the whole set done and I could rotate them on a piece. It's a good plan. We'll see if it happens, but I may keep this out. I don't know. I've got some other focus pieces that I want to work on next year once I get this Toledo to Toledo and my modern folk embroidery piece done. All right, I'm still not done with the shopping stuff because that was from Stitching in the Wild. I was there, that ended Sunday at noon, and I spent Sunday afternoon at the Legacy Museum in Montgomery. That was very educational. And then Monday morning I got up and I went down to Gary and Ronnie's brick and mortar shop, which is in Ozark, Alabama, so it's about 90 minutes southeast of Montgomery, which is where the retreat was. So I drove down to visit their brick and mortar shop. It's a beautiful shop. It's very well organized. It's brightly lit, which is a big pet peeve of mine when there's not enough light and I've got to keep carrying things to windows to color match and things like that. Got to see all of Gary's and Ronnie's samples that I have been watching them stitch on their Flosstube for years. I had a really good time there. So I bought some more patterns because of course I did. He had some patterns, designers that I'd never seen before. Well, I'll clarify that as I get to it. This first one is Love Poppet. And this is Boo Ghost, and Love Poppet is out of the UK. And I've never seen that designer before, but how stinking cute is that? On 16 or 32 count, it's 5.5 by 6. So it's not really small, but it's not big either. He said he had more, the patterns from this Love Poppet had flown out. I didn't go down until Monday. A lot of people were leaving the retreat Sunday and heading to the shop like on their way home. I had a flight Monday afternoon and my plan was to go down Sunday, but the Legacy Museum was closed on Monday, so I had to flip-flop my plans. So I know when I got down there, he was wiped out of a lot. Like a lot of the samples that he had, he has one whole section then where it's the patterns from the shop, for the shop samples, and he was pretty wiped out there. He even said a lot had left the day before. I have never stitched a Bella Filipina, and he had Bella Filipina patterns there. I mean, I've never even seen one, I don't think, in person. A pattern, that is. But I got Greta Goldbroom. Let's see if I get rid of the glare. Let's see if she'll focus better if my face isn't visible. I just thought her dress and stuff was pretty. And I got Belinda Botanica. So those are a couple Bella Filipinas that, and I'm not even sure these are typical. I think a Bella Fina is more like slim and sleek dresses and stuff than a Mirabilia, and these are more floofy dresses, but I'll get to them. Then I got just another Button Company, Mary Mary, a little bit scary. And this one has a ton of buttons. this pattern actually would never catch my eye, but this was stitched up in the store, and I love this sample. This was stitched up in the store, and I love the sample. It's Cottage Garden Halloween Sampler. There is a like second one of these, like a take two. It's different words. But I like the little cat on the bottom of this one, so I wanted this one. That would be a really fast stitch. Words go quickly. Yeah, everything's Halloween. If you're not a Halloween person, I'm sorry. This will only last a month here, but this is Cricut Collection Autumn Aprons. And I want to do the apron, not the skull. I just like that spellbinding apron over there. So that one was fun. And then I got Tiny Modernist Halloween Calendar. How cute is that? I had a couple thoughts with that. Not doing it this way all together, but maybe doing them individually, either to use on one of those, like make a perpetual calendar, or I thought about making a garland with these. They had at Garon Stitchery at the shop, Ronnie had made garland. They were round ornaments about this big, but he had made them, you know, just as a flat piece, and then a flat piece on the back, but he had ribbon running through them. So it was this garland of these round ornaments, and I was thinking this would be cute to do a garland with these little tiny things on them. Because what size are these? They're like 33 by 33. So a couple inches square. I mean, for being so tiny, like, look at the little expression on this little vampire here with his little fangs. Or those silly little Frankenstein. They're just really sweet. This is closest to my Halloween style. I have some things going that are a little more goth looking. All right. We are already at 120 minutes, and I'm gonna hold off on showing my freebies. But I am gonna show some fabric. I was not supposed to be buying fabric, but I have a good reason. So I did mention that Atomic Ranch was at Needlework Galleria, and they had 20 count Ada there. So I did buy, this is Blue Ridge. It's not showing up as blue or as modeled. This is Into the Woods. That's actually showing up pretty true to life. It's a little more modeled than what I normally would like. This side's not quite as modeled. And Christmas Night, which I've used before. I have Christmas Night in a few different stitch counts of linen, but when I spot something in 20 count Ada, I like working on 20 count if I want it smaller than 36 count. I just don't enjoy working on 40 count. It just becomes tedious to me. It isn't as relaxing. I don't get in the same rhythm, but I love the way it looks. So hence the 20 count. Gary did tell me, because we had a discussion about Atomic Ranch and 20 count. I think one of those pieces I bought at Garon. I didn't buy it from, I didn't buy it at the Atomic Ranch booth. Garon has an Atomic Ranch fabric fabric of the month club, and next year 20 count is one of the options. So I may look into that. I don't know. I don't have very much 20 count, and Atomic Ranch is one of the ones that they show you up front. Here's what the colors will be. So there's not mystery fabrics, because that's why I always hesitate to do a fabric of the month kind of thing. So I may consider that. I don't work on 20 count a lot though. I don't know that I need a lot of 20 count in stash, but apparently in my shopping I thought I did, because at Color and Cotton I also bought a bunch of 20 count. So I bought bronze. The nice thing at Color and Cotton was you could buy a fat 1/8. You didn't have to buy a fat 1/4. So I got bronze. I got almond butter. Sorry, I don't want to unpackage all these. I got Winter Moon. I got Chesapeake and Capri, and these last three probably all look the same, but if I hold them up next to each other, they actually aren't. One's a little more green, one's darker and later, but then I bought a little bit of fabric. So I mentioned when I showed this piece that this was dark Capri. So I also have Capri Bold and Capri Medium. And I don't remember if there wasn't light Capri or if I just didn't buy light Capri. But, well, it looks really like they're different colors on camera, but they're really not. They really are just lighter or darker, each one. And I was a little fascinated by that. And since I could just buy fat 1/8, and I couldn't decide which one I wanted, I bought bold and medium. I promise, I'm almost done. This was Christmas Berry. And it just looks, it's so different. It's like a reddish raspberry. It was a color that I absolutely have nothing similar to this in stash. I knew. Then at Stitching in the Wild, I bought a little bit of fabric from Stephanie. So I got pomegranate, which is more melon, not as hot pink as it's looking on camera. It's a lot more melon looking than it's looking on camera. Okay, it doesn't matter how far back I'm gonna get. What about up close? No, that's worse. And butterscotch cookies. I just kept looking at this one, and this one, ooh, okay, that is even brighter on camera than it is in person. It is pretty bright, but not quite that bright. But all I could see on it was like fall leaves, something fall or Halloween maybe, but definitely fall would look so good on this. And it is not It's just not as bright as it's looking. The color's not too far off, but it's a lot more muted than the camera's making it. And then this last one that I got was driftwood. I went to do something not too long ago and I needed brown fabric and I had none in my stash. I don't like brown, so it's not a color that's in my stash. But every now and then, it's what I need. So those were my fabric purchases. And yeah, you can tell I did more shopping than stitching. It was a busy 2 weeks. It was a whirlwind. It was a lot of fun. I did sign up to go to Stitching in the Wild again next year. I am not planning on going to Galleria again next year, but I did have a good time there. It just, we'll see how things line up in the fall, but my plan is really to try doing different things each year and not the same events over and over. But I do have a few. Stitching in the Wild and Stitch New Jersey are my two favorite retreats, and then Needle Fest Extravaganza is in Northern Jersey, and so it's easy to get there. I like that retreat fine. There's nothing I dislike about it. It's just a little bit bigger than the other two. And then those may be my 3 retreats for next year. I may not be at others. I have a trip to Europe, a cruise in June. So I've got some other expensive travel happening and probably need to scale back on the retreating, but we'll see. But it's been a fantastic couple of weeks. I just am exhausted now. So this weekend, my plan is to get my house back in order, rest up, and then I would really like to get done on a nice chunk of work done on From Toledo to Toledo. I still have a shot at finishing it this year, but it's going to be close. Because you can tell now that I have started stitching the Halloween stuff, because the things that were presented at these last 2 weekends were so Halloween focused. Now I'm just ready in the mood to roll with that. So I'm sort of losing my last 2 weeks of September here, where I thought I would work on Toledo to Toledo and some samplers. It may be Toledo to Toledo. Oh, I need to get some more work done on my modern folk embroidery. Put a bird on it, stitch along. And Halloween might be what's getting stitched, but we'll see. I change my mind all the time. It's whatever I'm in the mood for when I go to stitch in an evening. But anyway, I am going to wrap now. This is already 1.5 times my normal length video, and I'm starting to lose my voice from talking so much, and I will just start rambling. So I'm just going to shut up now and wish you happy stitching. Good night, everybody.